What's going on, Mountaineer Nation? How about that for a bounce back for the West Virginia Mountaineers? Final home game of the season, honoring both the seniors and Don Nealon, and they do it in impressive fashion with a three-score victory over Cincinnati, dominating really from start to finish to come away with the 42-21 victory over the Bearcats to give West Virginia their seventh win of the season, bringing them to 7-4 overall in the season and 5-3 in Big 12 conference play, and we're here to talk about it with you guys here on the West Virginia postgame show at the Voice of College Football Network. We're simulcasting both on the West Virginia channel and the Big 12 channels here on the Voice of College Football channel, and would like to ask you to subscribe to either one of those that you're tuned into and either one of those that you're watching. Do us a favor, hit that like button. Really gives us a lot of help here with the YouTube analytics, and that's what helps it all go here at the Voice of College Football Network. But appreciate all the Mountaineer fans that are here, and tune in with your thoughts here, whether it be on the West Virginia season as a whole. At this point, seems to be a pretty successful one of the most successful ones we've had in quite some time, and definitely our best win total under Neil Brown, no matter what, at this point. And just how about that bounce back, not only for, Garrett Green, for the West Virginia offensive line, after they had, what we had talked about, the worst games of each of their seasons. They bounced back and probably have the best games of each of their seasons. West Virginia running for over 400 yards in this game. Truly impressive. And you guys that follow me, which I'm Jordan, the host of the Country Roads webcast, WVU fan show. We host here on YouTube. Also, it's on podcast platforms as well, a couple episodes a week. And then we put out, short form videos on YouTube throughout the week. So if you're a West Virginia, find us on YouTube there, Country Roads webcast. But, I'm a huge fan of Jaheim White. It's a guy that I've been raving about since the offseason. With C.J. Donaldson's injury, gets his first career start today and has a very impressive performance, over 200 rushing yards, over 75 receiving yards, long receiving touchdown, and really the breakout we've all been waiting for from him. And I'm super excited about this West Virginia win, and I know we've got someone else that is here popping up in the back room, and we're going to bring him in now too as well. And you guys know this familiar face at the Voice of College Football Network, and that's Joey Foster coming in here with us. How you doing tonight, Joey? How you feel about that West Virginia win there?
I thought it was great. Now, I'll have to admit, the beginning of the game, I didn't think was the greatest coaching. The first couple of drives just didn't seem like it was going on like it should. But my goodness, this might be the best coaching Neil Brown's done since he's been at West Virginia. This was an amazing game. I thought. Neil Brown. He, he's kind of one of those guys that I look at and think, okay, we got to look at his whole body of work and think since 2019, how has he done? Maybe we need to get rid of him. Maybe we need to bring in Jimbo Fisher or some other coach. But then at the same time, today was just an amazing coaching job. I mean, it really was. The game plan was fantastic. I did not like the first couple of drives. I thought it was terrible coaching. But other than that, man, it was an amazing game. I loved it.
Agreed, man. It's certainly impressive. I was hoping to see us bounce back positively from, the negative week before, and I think they did in a big way, just all around, especially on offense. And then, I think, one thing that I failed to mention earlier there in the open was the defense. They gave up a little bit late there in garbage time, but one of their better performances of the season as well. So I guess that's kind of the question of the night here on the West Virginia post-game stream with the Voice of College Football. Do you guys feel like this was the best overall performance from West Virginia of this season yet? What do you think, Joey? Your best team performance of the season?
Well, I think what you said before about our defense at the end of the game, I made a note to myself. I think it was 8 minutes to go in the game. We were ahead 42-7. And, it looked like our defense was the one that was wore down, not Cincinnati. We looked tired. And so that worried me a little bit. That kind of scared me. But yeah, I wish that I wish we could get a full dominating game, offense and defense out of this team. But at the same time, today was probably as close to a full dominance. Even going back to the BYU game, there was at times in that game it looked really bad sometimes for West Virginia. But today kind of surprised me. It really did. I thought that we came out and just dominated the whole game, and it looked really good. But our defense did look pretty tired towards the end of that game, and I'm kind of concerned about that.
Yeah, I think some of that is from some of our starters having to play a lot even there late. I noticed when we even put our second teamers in, they still had to keep Beanie in, and a lot of that I think is due to the injuries we've had in the secondary, still having to play some of those starters. So probably gave him that look. But I think the most impressive thing to me as I sit here and think about it more, because when I was leading into the game, one of the things that I thought was the storylines was, of course, Cincinnati's defensive line versus our offensive line. Zach Frazier versus that big nose tackle of Cincinnati. And Cincinnati had a good run defense all season. I noted in our preview show on the Country Roads webcast that they had held three different teams to under 100 rushing yards on the season. I think West Virginia knew that a lot of people were looking at that matchup and wanted to make a statement. And man, did they ever, the way they dominated up front today.
Yeah, I remember when we were going to face BYU, and there was a lot of emphasis on Zach Frazier going up against that nose tackle, because he's pretty good as well. And Zach Frazier dominated that. And then last week, Zach Frazier didn't have the best game in the world, right? And I felt like today was a statement for him. I loved there in the fourth quarter when he took the whole line to the right and Garrett Green run to the left. That shows you how
Incredible.
dominant a player he is. He took the whole line. A center took the whole line of the defense to the right, and Garrett Green was able to run it to the left and get a touchdown out of it. So yeah, Zach Frazier made a great comeback this week compared to last week. So I was really happy about that.
As was I. Man. And I'm sure a lot of Mountaineer fans are happy with this victory. West Virginia comes away with it 42-21 over Cincinnati. And if you're excited about it, West Virginia has one more game on the road. You got one more chance to see some of these seniors that we honor today, Zach Frazier and the others, as they go take on Baylor and Waco to wrap up this season. You can see West Virginia pick up their 8th win, and a great source to help you do that. We got a great source for you to get tickets to that game, and that, of course, is Ticket Smarter. You can save on your next trip to the big game with Ticket Smarter. Get $10 off an order of $100 or more by using the promo code BIG, or get $20 off an order of $300 or more by using the promo code BIG20. Use the promo code as much as you'd like. Ticket Smarter gives you the most competitive prices on the secondary market, and your purchase is both safe and guaranteed. Get in the game with Ticketsmarter.com or the Ticketsmarter mobile app. And remember the promo codes BIG and BIG20. Think smarter, ticket smarter. And be sure to check that out. Get you some discounted tickets from us here at the Voice of College Football Network. But getting into some of your all's thoughts here at the West Virginia Post Game Show. I know we got some people in here. See you guys, Kenny, Dustin, everybody. Appreciate everyone that's in here tuning in and chiming in. If you are, encourage you to share your thoughts in here. Dustin Salt says, not bad for a team picked last now, huh? Now we got to win the last one. Absolutely, man. Let's get 8 wins here on the season for sure, Dustin. Glad to see you guys in here. Appreciate you sharing your thoughts there. How you feel about that, Joey, man? Do you think this team is overachieved? I mean, obviously compared to what the Big 12 thought about them, but in your opinion, going into the season, win total, have they overachieved already to this point? I mean, you think they'll beat Baylor and get to 8? You got to hope that they do, but even right now at 7, do you think they've kind of overachieved compared to
No,
expectations?
I really don't. I had them going probably about 7-5 this year is about where I had them.
Yeah.
I really thought we would lose to either Texas Tech or TCU. Actually, I didn't know that we'd beat either one of them, but I felt like the 4 newcomers into the league, I felt like we could beat 3 of them. I didn't know which 3 it would be. I figured we would lose to UCF. I think most people did, and ended up losing to Houston and dominated UCF.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that we got to realize this is a young team. This is a very young team. We don't have a lot of seniors, and the seniors we do have, we have great backups. I mean, they have some great backups for them. So next year could be a fantastic year, and that kind of puts me wondering about Neil Brown as the head coach. At the time, we're always wanting to trust the climb, right? Trust the climb. This year is the first year we've been able to say, "Hey, we've climbed."
Yeah, you see a little bit of evidence of it now.
Now, next year, can we win 10 games? Can we win 11 games next year? So, I'll tell you what my hope is. Here's what my hope is. I hope West Virginia is able to keep Neil Brown on for another year, or does keep Neil Brown on for another year. Let's see how it goes. But at the same time, they have to secure a big name coach. So maybe, hopefully Jimbo Fisher goes into announcing for 1 year or something, just broadcasting for 1 year. Or maybe we hire him as an offensive coordinator and a coach in waiting or something under Neil Brown, like we did Bobby Bowden, or like Florida State did with Bobby Bowden. They made Jimbo Fisher the coach in waiting.
Right.
That would be pretty cool to me. Now, would Jimbo go for that? I don't know. But at the same time, if he'll go into broadcasting for a year, I'm all for giving Neil Brown another year. Let's see what he can do, because I think Neil Brown's a great coach. I think that the last three or 4 years have just not been. I think it's been his adjustment. I don't think it's been the team adjustment. I think it's been a Neil Brown adjustment. Adjustment to the Power 5 level, adjustment to the Power 5 recruiting, adjustment to the Power 5 play calling. And I think he's learned a lot. I mean, so, next year could be a great year for West Virginia.
Yeah.
With this young of a team, and if we can keep this team intact, right? We have to get some NIL money in there. So, hey, if you're watching, contribute to NIL, because we got to keep these players here at West Virginia. We do not want these players taken off to Georgia or Miami or somewhere that can offer them a little bit more money. Let's keep them home. So be sure and support NIL, even if it's just $1 or $2.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And that's what a lot of people have talked about being, one of the negatives was a lot of, throughout these off seasons, people haven't been able to feel like they should donate to football because they didn't have faith, because they didn't have really, proof of, Neil Brown being able to win. So, if we come out this season with 8, maybe even a bowl game, 9 wins, and that's what I'm hoping for at this point, because I'm thinking, one of the big complaints has been we haven't been ranked under Neil Brown. Well, if you find a way to win your next 2 games, which will be your end of the season game and your bowl game, you end at 9-4, you're going to end the year in the top 25. So that would take away that complaint. And then you have a lot of pieces that could potentially come back in the future, could be bright, I think. And like you said, the goal then is just keeping those pieces. Well, I think if you have a winning season this year, you get more people donating to Country Road Trust, be able to not only hopefully keep the pieces you have more so than you have ever in the years past. Also, maybe bring in some more big names. This year we brought in a Beanie Bishop, but what if next year we bring in, 2 or 3 Beanie Bishops? That's what we need to move on to now. For the next step, I think, for Neil Brown to be able to, continue this climb, as we call it. Finally got, up on that climb a little bit this year, got over that one hump now, got over 7 wins. Hopefully it continues to be even more than that. But I think I'm right there with you. A lot of people going into this game were saying these final 2 games would determine it. A lot of people were thinking we might even lose this game. So, I think Neil Brown came out and made a statement in a lot of ways as well that, hey, we're going to win this in dominating fashion. I'm going to show you guys that I'm going to be here at least one more year. So, I'm not Ren Baker by any means, but the way that I would look at it now is I would keep him around, but certainly not an extension or anything out. Just let him ride out this contract he has, see how things shake out next year. So that way you don't put yourself in a worse spot you already are. And even by that point next year, if, something does go awry, his buyout would be even less next season and you could move on. And maybe by that point, you've already vetted out some coaches like you were talking about a little bit there, Joey. But I definitely think after today's win and after the way that they won, I don't see Neil Brown not around next season personally. That's my opinion, though. We'll see.
Yeah, that would be my opinion too. Although we have to think about what Ren Baker said. He said he was going. When he was asked about the expectations for this season, he said, "I don't have any expectations. After the season, I'll judge Neil Brown on his body of work." So if you're judging him on the body of work since 2019, you fire him, right? You have to move on from him. But if you judge him on progress this year compared to last year, or the last 2 years, you keep him. So, Ren Baker's going to have a tough decision to make here at the end of the year, especially with who's up available as coach, right? When Jimbo Fisher's out there, and it's a huge name, a well-known name here in West Virginia for sure, and Jimbo would come to West Virginia, it can make it a tough decision. But luckily, me and you don't have to make that. Ren Baker does.
It's just another tough decision for him to go right in line with the million tough decisions he's already had to make since he came on board, right?
Yeah. Do you keep Bob Huggins? I mean, he's had a rough.
He has, man.
He probably deserves a raise right now.
Yeah, he's had it tough for sure. That's no doubt about that. But I think the one thing, the way that he's looking at it though, probably also is going back to, because since he came in and when West Virginia made the change, firing Shane Lyons last year, West Virginia's had a good record since Ren Baker came on. So he may be even looking at it like, okay, maybe, Shane Lyons not wanting to be involved with the NIL and holding back the trust, as was reported, and seems to be, evident since Ren Baker came in and him pushing that more, and there being a lot more progress there. So maybe he's thinking now with Neil Brown having this at his disposal, he looks like he could be a winning coach. So I think that's why he'll keep him around one more season, see how it goes. And next year is really going to be the tell-all year for Neil Brown, especially like you said. Jimbo is going to have plenty of money. I don't expect him to dive right back into coaching. He could surprise me, but he might, like you said, get into announcing or something. And if Neil Brown's not having a good year next year and he knows Jimbo or somebody like that's waiting in the wings, then who knows what could happen.
Yeah. And, we got Jackson Johnson down there in the chat, and he's promoting us like crazy. Thank you, Jackson. Love
Appreciate
you, brother.
Jackson. You're the
I'm
man.
glad you're there. Jackson does a good job here at the Voice of College Football promoting everybody. I think he's on every channel at the same time promoting people. So thank you, Jackson, for that.
He
But
does a great job.
yeah. So I'm looking at next week, looking ahead to next week in Baylor. We shouldn't have any trouble in Waco, and going 8-4, getting a good bowl game. Let me ask you guys a question, or ask you a question, Jordan, and the chat as well.
Yeah.
How would you feel about maybe facing an 8-4 Clemson team out of the ACC in a bowl game?
That's funny that you bring that up because I got a friend that's a diehard Clemson fan. We grew up together, and he's always been a Clemson fan, since we were younger. So when they started finally getting good, he went to the first national championship game back in 2017 when they won it. And of course, the only time we've ever got to see West Virginia Clemson play was when West Virginia dominated them back in the Orange Bowl. So this year, when I seen Clemson and West Virginia kind of aligning record wise, I guess it was about 3 or 4 weeks ago. I was like, what if we play in a bowl game? That'd be crazy. And I was like, West Virginia's projected, play some ACC teams. It could happen. And I told him, I was like, I kind of hope it doesn't happen because y'all would probably win like 70-33 just because karma would be against us at that point.
But how great would that be for West Virginia? I mean, that would be.
I would love to see it, and especially if you can beat Clemson in a bowl game, that would be an incredibly good look for that team. You would definitely finish top 25.
If we think about the television audience back in 2012, it was huge. It was a huge television audience, and we beat them 70-33. Right? It wasn't even a contest. Now here we are, 11 years removed from that game, playing again with Clemson having all these national championships and all these playoff runs for all these years, and West Virginia getting another shot at Clemson. If we could beat them in a bowl game, that would be huge for West Virginia. It'd be huge for recruiting, be huge for West Virginia as a state, be huge for West Virginia University, and it would be extremely huge for Neil Brown.
Yeah.
So, hey, I'm a fan of Neil Brown. I really am. I don't want Neil Brown to be fired. I think he's a great coach. But the expectations haven't lived up to what they could have been, right, in the past. So, we came into last year. I came in last year saying we were going to be an 8-4 team, and we were horrible, And so I looked at things this year and I said, okay, maybe not 8-4, but I'll go with 7-5. We should be a 7-5 team. And here we are, a 7-4 team with one game to go. Can we make that 8-4 against Baylor? I think so. And it would be great. And then go to a good bowl game against a Clemson team, or even if it's not Clemson, against a good team. And if we could pull up a win there, it'd be great. But yeah, back to tonight, it was just an amazing victory. Probably the best coach game by Neil Brown in his tenure. I really believe so. It was just a great game plan, running the ball. Hey, we had the number 1 rushing offense against the number 2 rushing offense in the Big 12. Yeah. And guess what? Number 1 show why they're number 1, right? I mean, we totally dominated them on the ground. So,
and that's what's crazy too is, I mentioned West Virginia's offensive line wanting to make a statement and coming out and showing out against that Cincinnati defensive line, but Cincinnati's rushing offense as well, was top 5 in the country coming into this game. So maybe West Virginia's defense was hungry to make a statement there. They did a good job holding them down, a lot more than a lot of other teams have throughout this season, especially throughout, the first about 3.5 quarters until, West Virginia had the game pretty much sealed up, and then things started to slip a little bit late there on some of the run defense, and West Virginia put the backups in and stuff, and that we talked about earlier. But, great job rushing the football for West Virginia and great job stopping the run. And when you do that, you're going to win a lot of football games. And so I was just so happy to see West Virginia play the way they did up front, especially a week after, last week when Oklahoma thoroughly dominated them in the trenches. I'm sure they heard about that all week, and they came out and, made a statement.
Yeah, well, especially like I said, Zach Frazier made the statement for sure.
Mhm.
I mean, he really did. He showed why he's one of the best centers in the country today. And last week he just had a horrible week. I mean, and that's going to happen. And unfortunately, it happened against Oklahoma. And you can't have a game like that against Oklahoma and expect to be successful. And we wasn't successful in anything. But we made it. He made it for it this week. And I'm just really happy about this team. I'm really excited. Looking forward to Baylor next week. But yeah, I'm going to enjoy this win this week. And so let me tell everybody, I listened to I watched the game on ESPN Plus, obviously, but I also listened to the Cincinnati play-by-play announcers on the radio. I was listening to them on 700 WLW, I think is what it was. And at the end of the game, they announced a rivalry renewed and a rivalry that West Virginia is going to take home with them this year or keep this year. And I'm thinking to myself, what rivalry? You
Yeah,
guys are 3 and what were they? 3-18 against us or something? Now they're 3-19 or whatever it is. I mean, there's
yeah.
no rivalry. It's like Marshall. You feel like Cincinnati's acting like Marshall is, like there's some kind of a rivalry there. There's no rivalry at all. Could it become a rivalry? Yes, it could. It really could. But the game's going to have to get a lot closer than it is, and I believe Cincinnati can get there, just like they did in the Big East. It took them a few years in the Big East. If everybody remembers when they came into the Big East, it took Cincinnati a few years, but they started winning some games around 2009, 2010, 2011, and even winning the Big East a couple of times. So Cincinnati is a good team, and they'll grow and become a rivalry. But right now, it's just not a rivalry, and I think more of next week's game as a bigger rivalry between West Virginia and Baylor. If I look back to the 2012 year of 70-63, and the next year going to Waco and getting our asses handed to us, and then the following year they come to Morgantown as number 4 in the nation, and we hand them their ass and send them back to Waco. That's a rivalry. That's what makes a rivalry. Even though we're 3,000 miles apart, I mean, it's a it to me it's a rivalry game. I don't know how everybody else feels. I love playing Baylor. I just absolutely love playing Baylor. I love beating Baylor. Just as not as much as I love beating Pitt or Penn State, but of anybody in the Big 12, Baylor is the team that I want to beat. So looking
Yeah.
forward to next week.
I'm excited for it too. Hopefully, we put on a performance like we did today, similar. Because the ones that we've seen like this season, they've been at home. West Virginia finishes the year 5-1 at home following this game, and so hopefully they go on the road and can finally, show a dominating performance like this on the road as well. And I looked at my notes as you were talking; you were right on there. This win makes West Virginia 17-3-1 over Cincinnati all time at this point. So yeah, definitely don't think you can consider that a rivalry right now. Like you said, it may become one just due to the proximity with them joining the Big 12 conference, but we'll see what happens there. Tony Kidd says 5 versus 7 in the nation in rushing today. Yeah, man, that's one thing I talked about on our preview show going in. I thought that was an interesting matchup. West Virginia came in the game number 7 in the country in rushing. Cincinnati came in at number 5. And it's one of the things that impressed me so much about this performance, because I thought, and I talked about in the preview show that West Virginia may struggle to run the football a little bit because of how Oklahoma dominated them up front last week, and Cincinnati had a really great nose guard, but West Virginia, really, I think, wanted to come out and show that they were a better rushing team. They wanted to move up into that top 5 rushing in the nation. They certainly will after this performance. Over 400 yards rushing. A stat we'd like to give along for a while was West Virginia was undefeated in the Neil Brown era with over 200 yards rushing. That was snapped this year. He's now has one loss with over 200 yards rushing that he suffered against Oklahoma State. But West Virginia is now undefeated under Neil Brown when they rush for over 300 yards. And guess what? They're undefeated under Neil Brown when they rush for over 400 yards now too, Joey.
Yeah, and Garrett Green, the first quarterback to pass for 200 and rush for 150 since Pat White.
Impressive.
That's pretty good company. That's pretty good company right there. So, I'm really happy for Garrett Green. He played a great game. He read that Cincinnati defense. You could tell he done some game film study this week. He really did study Cincinnati because he was carving them up. Whether it was passing the ball, few of his passes were off mark, but hey, that happens. But whether he was passing the ball or running the ball, Garrett Green did a great job against that Cincinnati defense. So I'm real proud of him, and to be the first player since Pat White to pass for 200 and rush for 150. It's saying something, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
really, really proud of him.
Yeah, no small feat for him, and I agree with you. I think he certainly probably spent some extra time in the film room this week. He had arguably his worst game of the season last week, so he wanted to bounce back, and he bounces back with his best performance. Not only of the season but probably of his career as well. And it just speaks to more of the potential for next season with him returning, and potentially some of these guys, Jaheim White in the backfield, super impressive performance in his first career start, and like you said, Garrett was even hitting some of the passes this game that he'd struggled to hit all year. There've been multiple times earlier this season we've had the running back open and he just barely missed him. And if he hit him, it could have been a touchdown. Even last week, I think back there was a play Jaheim White broke down the field against one of the Oklahoma linebackers, and there's nobody behind him. If he hits him, it's a touchdown, and Garrett Green misses the throw. Today, he even comes through on that. They run that play action, fake jet sweep to Rodney Gallagher. They sneak Jaheim White out of the backfield, and 75-yard touchdown pass when he finally does hit that running back out of the backfield. Longest play of the season for West Virginia. So was really happy for Garrett Green to put on the performance that he did.
Yeah. And then Tony Kidd down here in the comments says people forget Cincinnati isn't that far removed from a playoff berth. You're right. Cincinnati isn't that far removed from playoff berth when they were in the AAC. And that makes a difference. Hey, when you're playing a Power 5 schedule, you can beat a Power 5 team on one-offs. You can play 2 Power 5 programs a year and have them a couple of weeks apart and win those games to make yourself look great. But when you got to come in and play a Power 5 schedule week in and week out, and every week it's Kansas State or Oklahoma, West Virginia, that makes a huge difference. And the year that Cincinnati was undefeated, got in the playoffs, if they'd have been in a Power 5 conference, they would have had a couple of losses. They were a great team, don't get me wrong, but they would have had a couple of losses in a Power 5 league.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think that their problem this season is they're a little bit, one-dimensional, because I think you look at their numbers and they're one of the best 3-8 teams that you'll see, maybe because they have really good rushing offense, but they're really lacking at the quarterback position. And looking at this game specifically, I think that one of their biggest mistakes was at the end of the first half. They finally put a drive together with quarterback Lichtenberg in there, and then they come out to start the second half and bring Jones back in, and then they never got a spark again. And I think if they'd have maybe had Lichtenberg in after the drive that he gave them in the second quarter there, the second half might have started differently for Cincinnati and could have gone, a little bit. They could maybe, who knows, made a game out of it. I was surprised that they went back to Jones at quarterback. Jones isn't bad, but he just leaves a lot to be desired when it comes to accuracy and decision making in the pass game.
Yeah. One thing that I thought was really amazing about this game was first half stats. West Virginia averaging, what was it, 8.1 yards of carries. Well, I don't have the numbers in front of me. Seems like it was 8.1 yards per carry in the first half.
I don't have the exact yards per carry, but I knew I wrote down some that was because West Virginia had 199 yards rushing in the first half, and versus Cincinnati's total yardage, which was 139. So we had more rushing yards than they had total yards. West Virginia 338 total yards in the first half.
And what was our total yardage for the game? I don't know that for
sure. I think it went over 500. I know.
On rushing yards had to be 400.
425 total rushing.
So yeah, that's an amazing game, And White, I mean, can't say enough about White. I know when White got hurt, twisted his ankle or whatever it was, little whatever. I was a little bit worried. Then I seen C.J. Donaldson come in, so I got settled down. C.J. come in there and took the ball over. When White came back, he seemed like he was better when he came back than he was before he got hurt.
I know, that's what's crazy. Over 200 rushing yards, 75 receiving yards, and like you said, looked like he was going to be banged up there early in the game. Ankle, calf, something they were saying, lower leg. And the funny thing is, imagine if he wouldn't have, had to miss that series or two that he missed. He could have had over 100 yards receiving to go with his 200 yards rushing, or even had higher rushing total. So absolutely incredible performance for a true freshman in his first career start. And if you're going to say anything, we're talking about donating to Country Roads Trust, Joey, pay that guy in the offseason. Pay him all the money.
Yeah, really. I mean, him and Garrett Green, and I'm gonna tell you somebody else we need to pay too, because this is a huge part of this team, whether we know it or not. We need to take care of Nico Marcio. we don't want Nico to leave. We need Nico as a backup. We need Nico as backup because hey, Garrett Green could come in game one next year and heaven forbid get injured for the season, and we need somebody that can back him up. So we've got to take care of Nico too. So anybody in this chat, anybody that watches this podcast, hey, you know what? Nico's a great quarterback. We need to build him up a little bit too, and let him know that we appreciate him too at Mountaineer Field. That's
Yeah.
for sure. We can appreciate C.J. Donaldson and White, and we can appreciate Gallagher and Garrett Green and everybody else. But the backups, we need to appreciate them too. That's why we can't build depth because they all leave. And it might be a little bit because we're not showing them support. So let's show them some support too. I'm happy to have Nico as a backup. I'd be happy to have Nico as a starter, to be honest with you. I'm fine with it. It didn't bother me early in the year when Garrett went down. It bothered me. I didn't like Garrett going down. But at the same time, it didn't worry me because I knew Nico was capable of doing that. So we have to make sure that we take care of Nico.
Yeah, I agree, especially when we're lacking on scholarship quarterbacks right now. We only have one other one on the roster besides them and Sean Boyle. We got Khalil Wilkins coming in this offseason, so we'll at least add to that total, but can't really afford to lose any of the ones that we have on the roster currently. And Nico is probably, one of the better backup quarterbacks in all of college football, I would argue, with his highly sought after he was as a recruit. And plenty of teams would be glad to have them as their starter. So to have him as a backup is truly a luxury. So can't encourage it enough to donate to Country Roads Trust, guys, if you haven't already. It's you can donate a little, you can donate a lot. Every little bit helps. And I think hopefully with a winning season, more people are willing to do that this off season. And if we are, we'll see, I think, positive results from it next season. We're talking about this year ending with 8+ wins. Next year, you could see that hit the double digits. And if you want that to happen, donating to Country Roads Trust is a great way to do it for sure.
And another player that we need to take care of too is Preston Fox. The man catches everything thrown his way, and if he can't catch it, he draws a pass interference. And so he's really good. Now the one downfall of Preston Fox that I see is not a lot of yards after the catch.
Right, it's not a lot of speed.
Right, but the thing about it is, a lot of his catches are challenging. They're hard to catch them. They're throwing them to him in double coverage or well covered sometimes, and they're throwing them a little high or a little off to the side. So he's having to dive for him, but he's making the catches. So that's a big thing. Now, maybe there's not a lot of yards after catch, but you know what? Throw it to him on the 20-yard line and wide open and see if he don't make the end zone. So, but he's always covered really good. He's not got a lot of speed, but it doesn't matter about that speed because the man catches everything thrown his way. So yeah, we've got to support Preston Fox too.
Yeah, he's Mr. Reliable. He just catches everything more so than any other receiver on this roster, I would argue, as far as consistency is concerned. If you need somebody that you can, count on, that you can guarantee is going to make the catch 9 times out of 10, it would definitely be Preston Fox out of these West Virginia receivers for sure. And, not only to retain these players, but Country Roads Trust can help us to, add to that room as well. We're talking about a lot of these guys West Virginia has, these skill positions. It's youngsters, whether it's Preston Fox or it's, the freshmen, Traylon Ray, Hudson Clement, Jaheim White. All those guys are freshmen, so they're going to be great. They're going to continue to get better next season. But imagine adding more superstars via the transfer portal that we're able to throw a little cash at to go along with those names. That could really be something special then.
Preston Fox kind of reminds me of a slow Jock Sanders. If everybody remembers Jock Sanders, yeah. The man, he was our third down king, right? I mean, if you had a third down, he was going to catch that ball and get us first down. It didn't matter where the ball was thrown. And Preston Fox is a lot like that. So I think that, we've got some good receivers in Preston Fox, Rodney Gallagher. One receiver I was not happy with today was Carter. I felt like that first pass that he had his hand on should have been caught. Mm-hmm. It was a little high. I'll admit that. But he didn't seem like he made a try on the ball very hard. And then the next pass that came to him, he had 2 hands on it and dropped it right there to the end zone. And it didn't look like he fought very hard for that ball either. So I'm kind of wondering where his head is right now. And I'm hoping next week he makes a bounce back.
Yeah, I think so too. There's been a few times this season I've seen that from him, unfortunately. Not trying to harp on the guy that's, been one of our leading receivers all season. He's made big plays, a lot this season. He made some in this game as well. But there's been a couple times where it looks like, if he makes the effort to go up and try and grab the ball, he could get it for the Mountaineers. And instead, he just kind of reaches one hand out, taps it or something, or doesn't, or kind of gives up on the route even at times. A couple of times you've seen him do that. So, like you said, hopefully bounces back because we're going to need him to have, a big performance against Baylor next week for sure.
Yeah, we are, and Carter is a great receiver. I'm not harping on him either at all. I just wish he would have fought a little bit more for that ball right there at the end zone, especially. He got two hands on it. He's got to secure that ball.
Yeah.
And when it fell down from him and hit the ground, he didn't act like he even cared that he missed that ball, which maybe is a good thing, right? You shake it off and you go on to the next play.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you need to show a little bit of a fire in you and emotion to, that, hey, I should have caught that damn ball. So,
right.
Couple of passes, and there's been a few of them this year, like you said. But he's a great receiver, and
he is.
I love him supporting. So.
Yeah, likewise. John Diamoto, appreciate you coming in here, man. And everyone else that's tuning in here and chiming in as well. We appreciate you here on the Voice of College Football channel.
I got to show John something. Hold on.
All right, go ahead. As Joey grabs that, I'm going to encourage you guys, hit that like button for us. Really helps us a ton here. And subscribe to both the Big 12 channel and West Virginia Voice of College Football channel as well.
Yeah, John, I've got something here I want to show you. Just letting you know, John. Love you, brother.
Just a reminder.
Just a reminder.
In case you forgot. I don't know if anybody's been talking about it lately or anything.
Last night I was in a show with Mark Rogers, and somebody, we was talking about Michigan and cheating and stuff, and somebody said, Joey, they didn't cheat, they just broke a rule. Yeah, it was a game that broke a rule.
I think if you look up the definition of cheating, it'll probably say breaking rules.
I love Michigan fans. They're a lot of fun. But John's a great guy. I love John. But yeah, so yeah, I'm excited about this win, this victory. It was a great victory. I'm excited about this season. I mean, to be 7-4 at this point when everybody had us pegged at 4, maybe 5 wins tops.
Yep.
And so many people owe me so much money, and I love that. And so, if anybody sees some of these Georgia fans, especially Georgia fans and Bama fans, tell them to pay Joey. They owe me some money. But West Virginia is a good, strong program and a proud program. And I'm hoping Neil Brown's finally caught on to that and coaching this year. He's coached for his job, and I have to admit, he's made it a tough decision. Even after the bad years of 2019, 20, and 21 and 22, even after 4 bad years, our biggest victory, even to this day, our biggest victory has been over Army. That's not a pretty big victory, but that's our biggest victory to this day. And that's because it was a bowl game, right? That's our biggest win. So Neil Brown needs to solidify his wins by winning next week, getting in a big bowl game against a Clemson or a USC or someone like that, and winning that game so that we can say, okay, now we're winning some games that matter. And, because the Army victory as a bowl game was a great win, but it is. I mean, it's the biggest win we've had since Neil Brown's been there. So we've got to make sure that that we can get some top 25 victories or some bigger bowl victories. And this year's that chance.
Definitely is. He needs a signature win and a big bowl victory over, an ACC team or an SEC team that's, around the same win total as us. You mentioned Clemson, Missouri. I don't know exactly who we're predicted to match up against. I haven't checked to look at the bowl projections yet, but, with one game left, that's a pretty good idea for a video. Might have to do that one. So look out for that on the Country Roads webcast channel. Potentially might have to do that. But, speaking of that, on our season prediction show, I predicted 8-4. So I'm feeling pretty good. Hopefully we can get that win next year, and then I'll be feeling pretty good, Joey.
Yeah, I am too. John Yanimo says I'll take 11-0. Yeah, you will, John. So you got to forfeit 10 of those wins.
Yeah, they'll be good for a few years until they go back and vacate them.
Yeah. Uh,
No, I
well,
get it. I get it.
Jordan, I appreciate you letting me come in here with you. I know you wasn't expecting
Anytime.
this and everything, but wanted to come in after this big victory because it was a huge victory. Probably the best coach game for Neil Brown, I think. The best game for Garrett Green, the best game for Taheem White. An altogether a great game for our offensive line. I'm so glad Zach Frazier had such a huge game. There's no doubt the player of this game was Zach Frazier in my mind. You can say Garrett Green all you want to because he had all these yards. He wouldn't have had those yards without Zach Frazier. White would not have either. Go back and watch that game. Zach Frazier dominated that defensive line of Cincinnati, and there's no doubt in my mind that he is the player of the game in my book. So anyway, Jordan, I will get out of here and let you continue your show and stuff. And I appreciate you letting me come in with you.
Anytime, Joey. Appreciate you hopping on, man.
Thank you, brother.
Have a good night.
You too.
Tony Kidd says the entire O line. Yeah, absolutely. That's one thing I was going to add to what Joey was saying there was I think Neil Brown and staff talked about it this week that the Joe Moore Award given every year to the top offensive line in the country. West Virginia just missed the cut to be a finalist for that award, which I think there's 10 finalists, maybe a little bit less than that. I can't remember, but West Virginia's offensive line wasn't a finalist, and Neil Brown said that he hoped they took that personally and was going to make a statement about it. And they certainly did in this game. 425 yards rushing. Incredible job. I don't know the exact stat. We need to look that up at some point. Maybe I'll talk about it on the podcast this week over on the Country Roads webcast, just how long it's been since West Virginia ran for over 400 yards in a game, because I know it's definitely been a while. And first time that a West Virginia running backs had over 200 yards rushing since 2016. So, it's been 7 years at least since that has happened for the Mountaineers. And Jaheim White does it in his first career start, which I'm ecstatic about. You guys know that follow us over on the CRW. I'm a huge fan of Jaheim White. So incredible performance from him in this game. I think, it's a toss up between him and Garrett Green, who would get my player of the game. I think the offensive line deserves a shout out. Since Joey gave his player of the game to the offensive line, I'll give mine to Jaheim White. With the nod, of course, going to Garrett Green as well. You got to give him an honorable mention. As Joey said earlier, first West Virginia quarterback since Pat White to rush for over 150 yards and throw for over 200 yards in the same game. Also saw a stat where he's the first West Virginia player to have multiple games in the same season where he has 3 rushing touchdowns since Steve Slayton back in 2007. So that's a record that's, over a decade plus since someone's done that. So Garrett Green, I know he's had a couple down performances this season, but overall he's been very good. And I think we're just seeing, kind of the tip of the iceberg of what Garrett Green could potentially be down the line, and also what this West Virginia team could be in the future when you look at it. They've suffered a lot of injuries on defense, so they're, doing less with more on that side in these performances they've had, at home these past couple of games against BYU and now in this game against Cincinnati as well. Next season, they're going to have a lot of those pieces back. You're thinking of Trotter, you're thinking of Trey Lathan, Keyshawn Cobb, Montre Miller, if he can get his waiver at the cornerback position. So West Virginia could have some better pieces on defense next season. Plus, as we mentioned earlier, you never know what's going to happen in the transfer portal this offseason. But then on offense, West Virginia brings back a ton. You lose Zach Frazier and Doug Nestor. That hurts on the offensive line. But you have backups with experience. I think Yates will slide over to center, so you'll have a guy that has experience starting there. Jaquay Hubbard will move in at right guard. He has experience starting. Nick Malone can slide in at tackle, or Johnny Williams. And then, of course, you look at the skill positions. Traylon Ray's is a true freshman. Rodney Gallagher's a true freshman. Jaheim White's a true freshman. Hudson Clement's a redshirt freshman. So West Virginia, the future is bright, really, with a lot of these pieces on this team when you look down the line. And this win showed us a lot of that, I think, in this game for Mountaineer fans, and gave us a reason to be excited again. Got it the potential to be, one of our best seasons since we joined the Big 12. Got a chance to win 8 games. Haven't done that since Will Greer and those guys back in 2018. And if we can win 6 conference games, believe that would tie for our second most conference wins ever in the Big 12. So tip of the cap for this coaching staff, not only for their performance in this game to get the 42-21 win over Cincinnati, but to go, kind of overachieve the outside expectations. I mentioned I predicted the 8-4 finish on our season prediction roundtable. I think a lot of Mountaineer fans were higher on this team, but the outsiders, college football was really down on this team. Predicted us 14th in the Big 12. A lot they didn't think we were going to win any games. DraftKings had our win line at 4.5. Our conference wins at over under at 3.5. Garrett Green was named the 69th out of 69th ranked Power 5 quarterback heading into the season by 247 Sports. So they were doubted across a lot of platforms from the outside, and they have certainly proven all those doubters wrong and overachieved in those terms. Going to finish in the top half of the Big 12 conference. West Virginia hasn't done that a ton in their time here in the conference and has a chance next week to finish with 8 wins and potentially 6 conference wins. So that would be awesome for West Virginia, as this entire performance was awesome for the Mountaineers as they run wild and emerge victorious, running for over 400 yards on Cincinnati. And, it's a strong Cincinnati defense that they do that on, a strong Cincinnati run defense at that with some dominant players up front. So shout out to the West Virginia offensive line, Zach Frazier and those guys getting it done on senior day, honoring the seniors, honoring Coach Nealon and doing it in impressive fashion. 42-21 win over the Bearcats. West Virginia moves to 7-4 and 5-3 in 2023 in the penultimate game with one more contest left to go on the road at Waco next season. Appreciate you guys that have tuned into the West Virginia postgame show here at the Voice of College Football channel as we simulcasted both on the West Virginia Voice of College Football channel and the Big 12 Voice of College Football channel as well. If you tuned in live, appreciate you chiming in. If you get a chance to watch us live and you're watching us on a playback, still do us a favor, hit a thumbs up. That helps us here. And if you're a West Virginia fan or a Big 12 fan, be sure and subscribe. Helps us, helps you, helps get more of this content out to all of the college football fans that enjoy it, including you guys that took in this show. And we really appreciate that. I'll be back next week for one final West Virginia regular season post-game show. And then, of course, we'll have a bowl game coming at you as well. But appreciate you guys that have tuned into these all season here at the Voice of College Football Network as we hosted these post-game shows. If you want to hear more of my thoughts on this game moving forward, I'll, dish out the player grades video and, of course, put out a recap podcast over on the Country Roads webcast. You can subscribe to us there on YouTube and on all podcast platforms. Follow us on social media at WVU Country Roads on X, and then Facebook and Instagram. We're just Country Roads Webcast. I'll be back to chat with you guys again next week. Hopefully it's coming after another West Virginia victory as West Virginia emerges victorious in dominating fashion, winning from start to finish, finishing their home slate at 5-1, honoring both Don Nealon and the seniors with a West Virginia win. And it's been fun talking about it here on the post-game show at the Voice of College Football Network. As always, I'm Jordan Cruz. And until next time, let's go Mountaineers.